Welcome to Built to Last, the podcast where entrepreneurs share real stories about the triumphs and challenges of building enduring success. Hosted by Colby Jardine and Levi Lawrence.
Hi, and welcome back to the Built to Last podcast, where we're trying to have meaningful conversations with business leaders, entrepreneurs, owners around, what they've had to go through, what they've learned, the things that matter personally and professionally. And we're really looking forward just to some of these conversations with people we wouldn't normally have a chance to have. I'm really excited today because I've never met our guests at all. This came through, connections through connections. And so I'm excited. There's some specific things I'm hoping to talk to, but we haven't even done a pre-call. And so I'm hoping this is kind of a real conversation. So maybe Colby, you had the initial connection. I'll pass it to you to just do, this is your foreshadowing, Joe. We don't ever read the bio. So at some point we are going to pass it to you to introduce yourself to the things that matter right now, instead of trying to read the history.
Perfect.
Colby.
So kind of a funny story. We had gone on a trade mission out to Ontario, just another Canadian province, and we went to a British networking event. It was like the British Chamber of Commerce and Canada. So it was, a very large group. And I had sworn when you reached out to me, I thought that we met that night.
You mentioned.
And yeah, so that was like, and then you had just reached out. I don't even know how you stumbled upon me, actually. So that would be a good little starting point too, after you introduce yourself. But once I had a chat with you, I mean, this is a really fast, obviously understatement of the year, fast world of like the AI, business development, sales. And I think you get into the other side of implementing AI into other workflows within the business as well, from what I understand. And so that was pretty much, we had a quick pre-call. We're going to jump on your podcast. You're going to come on ours, but this is going to be us kind of scratching our own itch of like what's been going on in this world from your perspective. And also you mentioned you're in Brazil, so you obviously work a ton remote and travel a lot. So I'm just going to pass it to you to introduce yourself. And is the last name Testouri?
That is it, yeah.
Okay, nailed it. Absolutely. Yes, good start. So yeah, introduce yourself to like if you were to meet us for the first time, how would you introduce yourself today?
Well, appreciated. Colby, Levi. Colby, good to see you again. Levi, good to meet you. And give a bit of a background into me, what I do, and my experience. I run an AI consultancy called Bespoke Agency. What we do is we go into B2B service providing firms, essentially installing growth engines into their business. So our primary focus, 90% of what we do is focused on revenue efficiencies, revenue operations. So it's essentially looking at how we can essentially make businesses' marketing efficiency ratio more efficient. That's what we look at. So it's looking at what they're already doing, how we can improve that, what we can do to essentially turn the cogs a bit quicker, a bit better with the use of not just AI, because this is what I've seen with my own podcast, the Grappling Growth podcast, is people quite often, and for some context, we're producing an AI white paper, which we're going to do an annual report now. So what we want to mirror this as is kind of the Deloitte paper for artificial intelligence. And how this is configured is there's two sections, two insects. The quantitative analysis, essentially what we're finding ourselves, and the qualitative insights that we get from our guests. So this will be live within the next 30 to 60 days is when we're angling to have it out for Q2 2026. And essentially it pieces together everything we've been finding. And I have to say, the insights are fascinating. And I think the use cases for AI are like none other to what we've been able to see before. You've heard all the stories of businesses building platforms, essentially going to market within a week and making $3 million based off of building a website on Lovable and then vibe coding on Claude Code. It's insane. What typically you would have had to have done and spent 18 plus months with a dev team. And the advantage before was outsourcing to maybe a team in South America or Asia isn't the way anymore. So we're essentially positioning ourselves at the intersection of everything that's going on. And we're focusing solely not on dev work, but we're focusing on how do we install an engine to help people find their ICP quicker, get a really clear lookalike list of who they're looking to target, and how do we produce messaging. And spoiler, that's how we came into contact with you. Stuff that actually resonates with people, hand raisers, as opposed to, I'm bored of you, I'm not interested in seeing what you're doing. And our business really took a massive pivot just over 12 months ago. So this was January 2025. We all knew that AI is here, it's to last. And I think a lot of people think that AI has only been around since the back end of 2022. I think OpenAI, ChatGPT really came alive December 2022. But in actuality, artificial intelligence was actually birthed back in the late 50s, early 60s. And it's always been very, very dormant. People haven't really focused too much into what it does, its capabilities. And now this is kind of the coming up party of AI. And this is where businesses essentially, from what I've observed, they're scrambling. They're really looking at how AI needs to be implemented. And quite often they're looking for, I'm 31, I forgot how old I was for a second, but they're typically looking for younger entrepreneurs to come along and say, okay, this is how you use AI. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're the facilitators of the product, the knowledge, understanding how we install them into businesses. So previously, we were pretty much just probably downplaying what we were doing. That's just me being a Brit. We were pretty much a traditional paid advertising performance agency, massively on a red ocean. And a lot of people are moving into artificial intelligence because that's where the puck is going, Canadian term for you guys. But it's just essentially piecing that together for those businesses, looking at the whole sales cycle for people, and essentially looking at how we can make them more efficient. So that's kind of a backstory into myself. As I mentioned, how I came into contact with you, Colby, is I've got a fantastic team of humans and AI agents that look at people who we might want to have conversations with on our show, people that essentially they work in unison with what we're doing. And that's how we came to reach out to you guys.
Fascinating.
So many things.
So many things. Yeah.
So who, like, who is your customer avatar? We have a very different experience, I think, and I'd like to get into some of it because all our customer, typically, we have a few avatars, but is the mature, stable, traditional business who's behind in some ways around tech or process. And so they're not ready. They're not like gearing towards AI. They're being forced to AI or bring in smarter processes. And so the way we market and present ourselves and talk, but you've been able to be a little bit more, out there, like AI is in your business name, which it never will be for ours. We spend a quarter of our time teaching companies on how to use technology, including AI, but we don't want to be the AI guys online because it's almost like the Trojan horse for us. But I was like, who's your customer that you're going after, and where are they in maturity? Are they typically new businesses starting up, or are they all over the place?
Our typical business that we would engage with would be a business doing between $1 to $5 million in annual revenue, give or take. One business we're in deep negotiations with, they're doing close to $20 billion in annual revenue. Can't say more than that, but they're really interesting. And what I found fascinating about them as a use case is company doing close to $20 billion in annual turnover. They have no AI stacks. The most that they have within their business is probably paid subscriptions to ChatGPT. And that is probably just paid for by the employees, which is insane. So what we're seeing is a massive gap between the businesses that are really aggressive with AI, and typically these are going to be naturally the tech companies or young entrepreneurs, people who are pretty much vibe coding themselves and figuring out how do we get creative assets together. So where we're placing and positioning ourselves are those businesses that they're fantastic at delivering for their clients. They might be consultancies, financial advisories, coaching businesses, turnaround strategists, DEI consultancies. A lot of them are consultancies. I've said that a few times now. But with those guys, they're amazing at delivering for their clients. They're typically bringing in deals worth north of 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures. But what they struggle with is that they're founder-led and that their marketing is heavily reliant on them. And it's really vicarious. It's a really reactive cycle where the founder goes out to find business. They pull in the business, they execute or they oversee the business with their team, and that they've got nothing that compounds. So essentially, we look at founders who are amazing at what they do. Some of these people that we partner with, that I sit down with, I look at them and think, you're incredible. But they're just missing the piece of how do we amplify our messaging? And not many of these founders want to sit down, turn around on a Saturday or for 3 hours a week, put a $2,000 camera up there, recording themselves. They don't know how to position hooks. What we do is we take their insights, we take what they're doing day to day, package it together, and we essentially build what we call our founder-led compounding ecosystem, which just means they need to jump on calls like this, podcasts, or sit down in their meetings. We record these meetings, and then we produce content from there. So that's typically our sweet spot. We're speaking to a few private equity-backed companies, venture capital firms, where those businesses, one is based in Silicon Valley. Those ones are a bit more faster growth, still founder-led. So I'd say a lot of what we do is probably capped at 25 to 50 mil run rate.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. That makes sense. Funny you'd say that. Like, we're just talking about recording content for like a full day and doing like 100 pieces in a day, kind of that Hormozy style. Yeah, because I mean, obviously what you're saying is correct. It's like
we also have a video production side of the company. Like we have all the gear.
we purchased
Cobbler's
like
Kids, like, and you can see the production value of our podcast. Like we have all the equipment and the editing power. Just Cobbler's Kids don't get great shoes.
yeah. We invested a ton in that's because we started off as like a small marketing kind of boutique agency, and then we started working with Levi, and I got into the Entrepreneurs Organization, and there's another organization that's similar that our other partner and Levi are in, and we just got fascinated with all the things that make a business work. So we just shifted into kind of helping people with all aspects of it. So we're essentially a 3-year-old business now, but we've been incorporated for 8, but we've shifted so much, we're kind of a new business. So, yeah. Okay. So everything you said made a lot of sense. And so how long have you been in business for? You're 31, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 31. How long have you been doing this?
It'll be 9 years come October.
Nice. Similar. Very cool.
So one of the things I do a lot of the operations work. So I do a lot of the consulting, and Colby does a lot more of the relationship building. And I find we've just recently, in the last year or so, had to come up with, like, this is changing so quickly. Like, I'm probably more knowledgeable than many, and that's why, like, clients like our work. But it's changing so quickly that I've had to give up the sense I will ever become a master because the needle moves. And so, like, I speak on stages and give workshops and webinars on, like, how you should use the internet, what's your tech stack, and, you know, how do you improve, and then I have to refresh all the time. How have you approached that ongoing change? Are you investing in ongoing internal learning? Like, how do you keep up to speed with the speed of how things are changing?
It's a great question, because I was actually thinking about that the other night while I was having a shower. And it came to me because I was anecdotally thinking about a question one of my best friends asked me. It was about a year ago. It was March last year. And he checked in on my New Year's goals. He said, "Oh, how are you doing with that?" And at first, mentally, I didn't say it to him, but I got a little bit defensive. I thought, I haven't done anything to do with that goal. But then when I looked at it, I was like, I haven't focused on that goal because I've invested my time and resources, financial resources, into coaching. And that was one of the most pivotal things I could have done for my business, because for me, sure, we can go to ChatGPT or we can talk to friends about, hey, what are you seeing working well here? But there's something significantly different about investing multiple four figures into yourself, betting on yourself to grow your business. So every year I have an allocated budget to invest money into my own education, development, and learning, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to become the blockbuster of my industry. I don't want to think that I'm here, I'm the incumbent within the industry, I'm complacent. I think in order for a business to grow, succeed, develop, they need to focus on two things: the here and now. So making sure that fires within the business are being put out as quickly as possible. They need to make sure that their clients are massively satisfied. So they're always looking at how did they delight their clients. And consistently, I'm reading books. I read every single day. That's like my little nerd internal thing. I've read every day for the last 6 years without fail. And it's all about how do I get myself to be the best representation of my brand. So we're investing in coaching. We're always developing, always reading, and just generally having our ear to the ground. And you guys probably know this yourselves. Just throwing a question to you. How many other marketing agency owners do you know?
Quite
A
few.
lot.
And it's a case that the market will think, oh, agencies won't be friends with each other. But I can tell you, I can count one hand how many friends I have within the agency space who I regard as good friends, people who I would invite over to my house for dinner, sit down with. If they had a problem, I would bend over backwards to help them. And having those people in my network means that whenever they find something new, we share those innovations. Whenever I'm struggling with something that I really can't get my head around, we work with each other. And it's just agglomeration force. It's just figuring out how do we keep on moving the tide so everyone else, or everyone included, benefits. So those are things that I'm really passionate. Those are things that I really care about. And I think for me, if you stop learning, if you stop having a curious mindset, then your business eventually will fail. And you've seen time and again, really successful people, they essentially capitulate within what they're doing because they get complacent. And one thing I've always tried to vow to myself is I never want to get complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like my number one fear as well. Like the teaching the old dog new tricks thing is always something that's in the back of my mind of like, how can I avoid this for as long as possible?
Well, I mean, it's very aligned, like very validating, because like our company, we have three equal owners, and all three of us have the budget you're talking about, which was a big decision for us to make at the time. So all of us are in founder-led peer groups separately, and all of us have professional development that we're going and upskilling and traveling to do so. And like we're in a part of the world where you got to travel to do anything. So there's nothing easily accessible, but it's that investment in us, like we know that for every new level we achieve, there's going to be new challenges we don't even know. So on top of learning things like, where AI is going, we just got to start meeting the people who have been where we want to go, and building that almost like the tool belt. Like that's core for us. It's a big part of and it also makes us better at what we do. Like we have our network of knowledge. Like we can work with any company because it's like I'm 1 or 2 degrees away from the person who's done what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you that sense of confidence when you can leverage those relationships.
Yeah.
So you're primarily in the UK?
Geographically, yes. So our base is there. For me, I spend quite a lot of time moving around, traveling, and I guess it's great leisure, a great privilege with regards to having a business that is remote. I don't have any geographical boundaries, but it's amazing because I can go out, fly out to see a client, I can move around, shoot podcasts here, and there's no real time zone issues. So yeah, a little bit of a mix, and our team is international. So again, that gives us an advantage with making sure we can reply to clients pretty much round the clock.
Wow.
Yeah, we're the same way. We're just, most of our networks are in Canada. So we've been like the last year trying to start building our networks outside of the region. But
Yeah.
referral work
Maya,
keeps coming in. So then it's like, okay, well, next week.
Maya, who's the producer that you can't see right now. She is here though. She just moved to Dubai like 3.5 weeks ago. Yeah, 3 weeks ago. And we've got our managers in Montreal. I was in South Africa for 3 years when we first started. And like, that was kind of one of the main reasons we started it. It was like, I don't want a physically dependent business, but it's interesting that you're in Brazil. Where in Brazil are you right now?
Rio, have you been?
So I flew into Sao Paulo, but then I went to Florianopolis.
Peninsular there, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. So I went with my EO peer group. That was my first experience with them, which was insane. But yeah, it's my favorite place right now on earth is Florianopolis. It's incredible. But yeah, the whole working from like remote. I just bought a house. Levi's also owns a house, and we have spouses as well. And you know, we catch ourselves wanting to drift around quite a bit. So we're trying to create business in the UK right now, so that we can have some excuses to go have some fun over there and
a lot less mobile and digital nomad than I used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I marry geography, not business.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's funny that we're actually quite focused on going to the UK for our business, which is starting very soon, like within the next couple of weeks, is that push.
So just curious, what's the goals for within the UK, and why the UK?
Well, it was the US, and then less interested. So we spent some time trying to build some relationships in Atlanta and New England, because we're so close. Like we could drive there in hours. I'm about 45 minutes from the border. And but then now it's just so up and down, and like we just don't want to invest there. And then we don't want to work outside of English, because that's where our skill sets are. And so that left, and we can get to maybe not London. London, there's a lot of logistical complexity in traveling, cost and time wise, but like the way we looked at it is we can get to Edinburgh for like less expensive than to go to our capital, like for $400 or $500 and a 6-hour flight, and we're there. So it's like an easy access market. It's also, most of our clients currently are typically aging. Like our business value prop is less about like making you more efficient and helping you grow. Although we can do that, or we help on some of those things. It's, you're coming up on a transition and your business depends on you. And you want to sell, and you found out you got golden handcuffs, or it's not worth as much as you want. And so you're on that journey of making your business less dependent on an owner, like the built to sell. If you're a reader, like we want to hit the easy button on built to sell or email. That's really, so it's very similar work, but like that's the person we're going after. And that's the problem we're trying to solve, is make the business run without you. And often, like most of our clients actually right now don't have growth as a goal. They have, I want to step back as a goal without losing what I have. Or I want to pass it on to management, or I want to help delegate more, or I want to sell. And so similar activity, but very different value prop. And by the research we've done in conversation, there's actually a large aging demographic of business owner in Northern England and Scotland.
That's
so that's kind of our interesting point. Yeah.
That's what I was just about to say is Canada, UK. I mean, we're not going to be going to Japan with this, I don't think, but like Japan, and they all stopped having kids. So we thought it was like we we thought it was a save the planet moment, and it turns out it wasn't. So there's going to be a huge issue of all these businesses are going to either close down, or they're going to get a significant reduction on what they should have been able to get.
Well, it's even just like validate that. I don't know if you, from your, because you work with lots of different businesses, you have your own network. In the East Coast of Canada, like the stats are now, because it got delayed because of COVID, people who are like normally would have like successioned or transitioned, like over I don't know, it's like 50,000 businesses in East Coast, like in the Atlantic region of Canada, are going to close up their doors because there isn't enough money in the next generation to buy those businesses, and investors from outside of the country don't want to buy something that's complicated or has any risk involved. And so there's just all these, like, we're calling the gray tsunami is actually what they're calling it. There's just all these businesses. Like, so if we had more money, we would just start buying businesses and flipping them. But now instead we're providing services. I don't know if you've seen any, like, you're a different customer base, but are you seeing anything similar?
I can't say I'm really hunting for it. I follow the content of Cody Sanchez, and it's conversations that I have friends talking about buying businesses from people who are about to retire. I'm London born and bred. London is probably the most multicultural city in the world. You can go to 10 different areas and you can feel as though you're in different countries. And quite often, certain areas are dominated by different ethnic groups. So quite often the businesses stay within them. And I think the biggest challenge that businesses face within London is competition and sky high business rates and utility bills and whatnot. So that's probably where those businesses are closing, sadly. To your point, places like Edinburgh, Scotland, they are a place, and it's criminal because I've traveled to over 50 countries, but I haven't been to a few of the home countries there, Scotland, Northern Ireland. Point being is you have regions throughout the UK which are still dominated by British people. And I think there's a lot of businesses there that are closing up. These could be mechanics. These could be local coffee shops. These could be bakeries. These could be businesses that are just aging. Maybe they're profitable and there is no one within their family who wants to buy them, because let's face it, a lot of people, I'll just give you a random place up north called Scarborough. You've got a place there where people from Scarborough, my age, what do they want to do once they finish university? They want to come down to London. They want to enjoy themselves. They don't want to turn around and run their mum's bakery or their dad's car dealership because it's boring. And quite honestly, and I mean, I'll put my hands up. My dad runs a building company based in London. We've had several conversations. That isn't my passion. And one of the days where you essentially work in the farm and, oh, you're fourth generation to be the person working in the farm, we're not in that cycle anymore.
I could have been the ninth in our dairy farm. So I get it. Yeah.
There you go. So I feel that I don't have direct proximity to it. I know a few people who their dad used to do this and they're looking at selling it on. But as you said, it's that, and I've seen this gap, and this is personally what I've been doing with my business over the last 3 or so months. I brought in an operations manager purely to build our business so that if I did look to sell it in a few years' time, it wasn't founder dependent on me. The relationships with clients, yeah, I might be the key person of influence that pulls the business in, but the team delivers. Not only does the team deliver, AI delivers. Therefore, when people look at our business and they say, okay, you made $1 million turnover and your profit margin was $500,000, that's quite impressive compared to, hey, we made $1 million, but then we spent 950 grand. And wait, when you remove yourself, it's done. And I think that's what a lot of small businesses are going through. And that's the big gap that I see within not even just the UK, but globally. And to your point, Japan, aging population, loads of small niche restaurants that no one wants to take over. I think systemically there is an issue throughout loads of countries, even talking about Dubai. Maya, she's just flown out there. There's a big challenge, and I know this firsthand because one of our clients who we work with, we've helped them with a campaign to work on Emiratization within the UAE, where Emiratis are either choosing to leave the country because, again, they're bored of it. And I don't know what the phenomenon is. Is it a case that us as humans, we somehow get bored of what we already have? Colby, you mentioned you're Canadian, but you lived in South Africa for 3 years now. You wouldn't be remiss to think that you did that because the weather is probably a little bit better, but hey,
A little bit.
there we are. We're in this time where we can run these businesses from anywhere in the world. And the sexy thing is pretty much what we've all done, is to be able to turn around, run a business that is pretty lean. There's no fixed cost. There's no crazy cap, or there's no crazy high ceiling that you need to hit every single month, pay for rent, pay for utilities, to pay for business rates. Your costs are typically your team members, your tech stack, few pieces of insurance, and then there you go. So that's generally what I've seen. And I've got loads of friends who started their own businesses, and none of them really are starting a brick and mortar business because they understand how competitive it is.
Yeah.
I know a guy that works in our space, or somewhat in our space. He's spending $100,000 a year on rent. It's just wild. It's wild.
I do want to, and hopefully there's something here. There might not be, but like you mentioned quickly early on, is like the idea that, you know, a young person, or anybody, but really it's a young person who's going to like vibe coding or create something with a couple platforms and get to that, you know, 7-figure quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned like we're starting businesses low, you know, low investment, lower risk anyway. You know, but we've done that, and I work with lots of people. Like, it's not all romance. It's like, it's not a passive business. And I was wondering, from your own perspective, like you've built this, and if I look at your LinkedIn, you have a lot of this like remote, you know, you're living the digital nomad. You're in Brazil. But you must have had some of your own growth pains, or you know, the challenges that you had. And I like getting a little bit of realism to that digital nomad dream. There's a lot of people who's like, oh, I can quit my job and start a business tomorrow. And it's like, hopefully you're not going to tell me, yeah, you did that and you have never had a challenge. But I've never talked to somebody who found that as easy. Like they were like a 5-year or a 10-year overnight success. How's your journey been? Like, has it been the up and down roller coaster that most business owners talk about, or have you had the hockey stick?
I've probably had the most roller coaster ride of an entrepreneur journey out of everyone I know. So I'll give you anecdotally, I'll give you a quick timeline background. So I started my business in October 2017. In May 2019, I was working in Canary Wharf, skyscrapers of London, in a banking role, which was boring. And the way how I saw it was, I can come back to this. I've got a degree, I've got a master's. Okay, it might take 3 months to get a job, but I will get a job in the city again. And I had a real moment as to why I quit my job. So at the time, my uncle had bowel cancer, and I went to my boss and said, it was last minute, my mum texted me on a Monday, said, can you come to the hospital with us tomorrow to just check in, see if he's okay? And he also suffers from mental health. So it wasn't just a case of, can you come and help? It was like, he needs support, he needs guidance. So I walk into my manager's room, office, and just said, and she had no empathy whatsoever or sympathy. I just said to her, hey, look, I know it's really short notice, but can I take an extra 2 hours off for lunch? Explain the situation. And she was just sat there filing her nails. She said, I'm really sorry to hear, but no, you're going to have to run this by HR. I'm not too sure. And I just thought, like, anyways, like, I used profanity in my head. And I just thought, yeah, I don't know if I can swear here, but
Sure.
Oh,
I was like, you bitch. Anyways, no, seriously, and I'll say it to her face. I don't care. A week later, I was there, and I was like fuming. That was it. I quit my job, and I thought, fuck this. I can come back to this job, and I'm not having someone tell me what to do. And I did this way too prematurely. So for real context, I had £200 worth of retainers coming in, which is not even close to enough to live off, especially in London. And I was very fortunate. I was lucky. I've come from an amazing family home. I was at my parents' house, but they were very strict. They weren't to the case of, oh yeah, you quit your job, you don't need to pay rent or whatever. There was like, no, you still pay the same rent that you're paying now, and that's it. But all I said to myself is, and I don't know ways, maybe it's a case of being an entrepreneur or whatever, but there's just having a bit between your teeth and thinking, I don't want to go back to that job. And I remember I went to play football, soccer with a friend, sat down afterwards, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to give this business 6 months. And I remember he said something that really stuck with me. He said, no, mate, that timeline's too short. Give yourself at least a year. Now, if your maths is there, May 2019, a year later, COVID. So things are really, really tense. In that time, it took a while to build the business. And literally, I remember March 2020, I went down to nothing. Did we have a client? Yeah, I had one client left. That was it. And I had to rebuild this whole business. And we weren't eligible for any furlough schemes. And sorry, when I say we, I should just change that to I. It was a pure solo, founder-led, one-person business. So if I wanted to be lazy on a Tuesday, play FIFA, play PlayStation, well, guess what? The business is not moving. So what I realized is the classic saying, no one's coming to save you. And I remember there was just a switch there. The equivalent of Walmart, they own the Walmart equivalent in the UK, Asda. I remember I looked at a job on the Asda job board at the start of April 2020, and I had a bit of a moment where I just kind of vented. I had my internal reflection. And then I said to myself, you've got 1 month to make this work, not 6 months, 1 month. And I knew, and this is probably the biggest lesson that I share with young entrepreneurs, and partly why I started the Grappling Growth podcast, is to share lessons from founders, real stories. And what we say is each and every entrepreneur grapples with growth, experiences growing pains. It's the real journey. There are some people who are born with a silver spoon. Daddy's given them a few $1 million. Go on, try a business. You can fuck that up and that's it. Most of us don't have that background. And I didn't. And I'm really glad I didn't, because I think if I was spoiled, then I wouldn't have had that bit between my teeth. And what I realized that when you're starting out with your business, it is you and hard work. And luckily now, yeah, AI and tech and systems do stuff. And this is why I'm so set on investing into coaching the ecosystems around you with the right people, because sometimes you just need accountability from someone, or sometimes you just need someone to say, mate, get up. And I've had those moments. And it's not even though I just had them in 2019, 2020. I've had periods where my business has done really well. And then in 2023, it dropped off a cliff because we picked the wrong niche. Market has changed. And at times you're scratching your head and you're thinking, what is going wrong? And I feel at times business is a case of you've got this mountain, and what you're doing is you're pushing the rock up the mountain. And what happens is you go to sleep, or you turn around and you think, you know what? It's not I want to, but I need to take a few days off business, or, and this is the truth, or not a mental breakdown, or you have just a point where you're like, fuck this, I can't do this right now. My brain is just not clicking. So you let go of that rock, and what happens to a rock? It starts falling down. And the longer you let it fall down for, what happens with it? It's gravity, it gets faster, it feels heavier, and then you can't stop it. And I think where AI is now, and very fortunately where I've got my business to now, is I have been able to build the business where I don't just have to push the rock up. I have the rock on a cable cart, which is metaphorically my team, AI, and our systems. And when I let go of it, it can then pull the rock up. But it still requires me to give it a bit of a push and say, okay, slow the pace down a little bit or speed it up a little bit. And the truth of traveling is that it's really hard. And I went traveling for 12 months from September 2022 to September 2023. And the way how it was glamorized, and I've spoken about this on my own podcast several episodes ago, it's probably in the first 5 to 10 episodes. But I said the truth is traveling, running a business is really difficult. And I think it forces you to become extremely disciplined, regimented, understanding that, okay, these are the days I've got booked up for this. These are the days I've got booked up for this. And I think the issue sometimes with us as entrepreneurs, business owners, is that we get quite lazy and we're like, oh, I'll do it when I feel like it, or I'll do this. And sometimes it's just having that own self-accountability, not having the accountability of Levi to Colby, Colby to Levi, or me to my mate, Steve, for instance, one of my best mates, runs an agency. Sometimes you need that kick up the arse, but at the end of the day, no one's there with you 24/7. And sometimes you just need to have that own accountability with yourself and just learn the power of saying no, because the way how I see it in my life and eyes now is, if I focus on immediate gratification, well, my business suffers. If I focus on delayed gratification, then my business prospers. And I'm here now in Rio with my girlfriend, and I was here this time last year, and she said to me, "Oh, so how many times did you go to the beach last year?" I didn't go to the beach once. I did it, and I was like, what an idiot. So I really said to myself, I made an Excel sheet that I said, okay, I'm going to make sure that I have blockers and I track it. So how many hours am I working a day? How many meetings am I taking a day? How many hours am I exercising? How many hours am I actually enjoying life? Because I think it's really important to get that balance. And at the end of the day, we can't have everything at the same time. And we have to pick what we want. Where we add, we subtract, and vice versa. So it's just about finding that balance and just being quite consistent. And we're not going to win every day. But for me, if I can win 4 out of the 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, then I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So first, thank you for sharing all that, because this is the real. Like, I was hoping it was real, and this is not enough people talk about some of that stuff in general language. I know it's on podcasts and stuff, but just should be normalized. There was something you said that that I think about a lot. Like, we've made the decision. So the solopreneur, or the person who's gonna do their own thing, or like you in the first couple of years, as you described. And that decision, like, we've made the decision, we had to remake it a couple times, where we want to invest in the structure that has the resources so that it continues to move regardless of whether we take a day off. And part of that was us becoming partners, because that was the decision. Do we want partners versus solo owners? And then there's some years where, like, the amount of work we have in, we could lower the team size and make a lot more money. But like, the decision we've had, like, we have an operations manager who's great. Like, the 3 owners, we don't send invoices, we don't collect receivables, we don't manage payables. The sales coordination that we invest in, so somebody like AI tools for sure, but somebody who's able to really nuance and think about deal making and pricing and estimating things, like those overhead positions at a company our size, we're not large. We had constantly, it's like, oh, well, this year we probably, like, this year maybe we don't make anything. Like, a couple of years ago, we could just, like, immediately change that on the books, but we don't want to have the business that, like, if we slow down, everything slows down. So that concept, like, we want to build the structure, we want to build the system. We actually called it, for 2 years, we're going to overbuild the engine. But we have to re-look at it every year. Like, it's a big decision that I think people need to make a conscious choice of, versus, because otherwise it's reactionary. So you're making things, emotional decisions.
Yeah, and now, Joe, we're making decisions, because a lot of our clients, the majority of our clients, there's a pretty large timing aspect to them investing in what we do. There's like a self-awareness piece that they're in the position they're in. And then there's the timing of, like, well, we didn't really set aside a budget for this, or, maybe the funding taps aren't flowing in Canada as much as they were a couple of months ago. So we're making some shifts to create a more volume-based business, which we're pretty excited about. We're still going to be doing those projects, and we love doing them. It's just the lumpiness of that is not the most enjoyable. Like, we think there's, like, we're pushing the rock uphill while carrying a couple of backpacks too. And there's someone, like, trying to pull us down at the same time. So yeah, we're making those adjustments, and, like, I think it's really hard to give yourself grace. It's really easy to get into a negative mindset of, like, oh man, I'm not doing enough. I'm like, what decision should I be making? I can't make decisions. It's like, it's just this constant kind of thing where you're trying to protect what you've built, but also go to where you need to go. And if I didn't have the peer group stuff and the coaching, it probably wouldn't even got to this point, to be honest. But what I was going to mention about earlier, you said something earlier that made me think of some of the work that I'm personally doing right now. We help companies and organizations also come up with, like, mission and values if they don't have that, and what does that exactly mean to them. and getting their team on board with that and getting team involvement. I made a realization the other day on a call with a kind of an accountability friend that I've never built values, standards, mission, purpose for myself. And it is one hell of a challenge. Because you're the only one kind of accountable to that. So you can just constantly make reiterations and not, and not fully kind of dive both feet in or head first. So I've been doing that work, and it's been fascinating because, it's like you mentioned, those kind of days, those lazy days, those lazy Tuesdays or whatever, developing your standards is like, what are you doing when no one else is in the room? And like, is it driving the business forward? Or, are you able to take that rest, but then know that you're going to come back and kill it in these next moments? It's been an interesting exercise, to say the least, because I've done it for other people lots and businesses, but I've never done it for myself.
Interestingly, what you said there, there's a concept known as Solomon's paradox, if you've come across it before. You have,
No.
Levi?
Yeah.
Very interesting. So it's essentially the advice you give to someone is often the advice you won't take for yourself. So you can tell and guide your friend and say, okay, you really shouldn't do this. But then you're in the exact same position. The one thing that our minds forget when we give advice to people is emotion. And I think it's one of those things, is you use a term, standard of excellence. I think I look at things from that lens there massively. And it's also, and probably a case of being a man and someone who thinks he's masculine and slightly outfudged, maybe a little bit, but you try to look at yourself and think, you put yourself to a certain standard. You want to push yourself, because at times I try to view myself into the future and ask myself, what would 40-year-old Joe say? What would 70-year-old Joe say? And quite often they would say, I'm thinking about what I'm going to be like at that person. But then quite often they would probably look at the person I am today and say, you know what, you're doing okay generally. And I think, again, it's just taking rules. It's like, I have what I call daily non-negotiables. I mentioned I've read every single day since April 6th, 2020. I have my own other few daily non-negotiables. And when I have those really shit days, and they always pop up, you probably get 2 to 4 a year where you literally just wake up and you're like, all I want to do is eat ice cream, brownies, watch TV, draw the curtains, and that's it. And sometimes it's, as long as I take care of my responsibilities, go again tomorrow, that's it. And I think it was James Clear, Atomic Habits, he said, it's like the rule of 2. Just make sure you don't do something twice over. If you miss the gym today, don't miss it tomorrow. And I think it's really just a case of being kind to yourself. And at the end of the day, man, we're not AI agents. We don't work 24/7. We are human batteries that you see it in Navy SEAL training. You turn around and you deprive a man of sleep, what's going to happen? He's going to fall face first. And I've got quite a few friends who are military, ex-military, and they've told me some stories, and you think, fair play. But at the end of the day, we are all human, and it's just having that balance. I think it just becomes a problem when that's a consistent theme, when you're constantly choosing the path of least resistance. And I've got one of my favorite sayings is, if ever you're faced with 2 decisions, always take the harder one, because typically the harder decision is normally the one that's going to get you ahead. It's the better decision to make.
Absolutely. I'm almost done Atomic Habits. I can't believe I haven't read it. It's kind of wild how that one skipped across somehow. I missed it. But that was like the big click in that book for me was, a lot of people don't want the rigidity of what you might implement in a business into their personal life. But what he's saying is, like, you're creating those habits whether you know that they're there or not. So might as well be intentional about your habits. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh no, that's lame, or like, why would I live my life like that? And the same is like building values and a mission for your own personal life. I think it's like, I'm excited to see where it's going to go, because I think, yes, we need balance but I also think that we've got an ability to go to another level, and we're probably just thinking about it in the wrong way, or like we're ruminating on the wrong things, telling ourselves stories that aren't necessarily true about ourselves or our situation.
But it's so interesting you say that, because it kind of looks at neuroplasticity. We are able within our minds to do whatever we want, stack habits, as he talks about, position cues for ourselves. And we have so many cues that we don't even know about. I'll give you an example of something I purposefully changed a few years ago. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. 2 things. I don't have notifications on my phone for Instagram, WhatsApp, anything that's just quick, high dopamine communication. I have it for text. And I say to people, if you really need me, call me or text me. I have my phone on do not disturb probably 80% of the day. And I have Opal, which is an app that time blocks certain sections. And then secondly, for the best of my abilities, I don't sleep with my phone in the room, because it's such an easy cue that you wake up, you turn over, and you go on your phone. And for me, as much of the Andrew Huberman fanboy content I've looked into, that is really not beneficial to our minds. Just getting light exposure, making sure you're drinking coffee 45 to 60 minutes after you've woken up. These are the small little things that I really focus on. And I think to what you've said, and this is a big thing that I've really focused on, mainly since I hit 30, which was just over a year ago now. I was looking at myself and I thought to myself, what are the habits that I want to display and show in my personal life? Because, and this might sound really, really harsh, and this will offend people, but this is my honest opinion. I look at someone's physique, the way how they show up, the way how they're groomed, all of these key details, and I think that's you as a person are a reflection of how you are in your business. If you iron your tops, if you groom yourself, these are really important things to me. And quite honestly, those are decisions I make when I hire someone, when I do business with someone. Because if someone is 50 pounds out of shape and they're really sloppy, they don't care about their own presentation, they don't care about their background, I think, how are you going to represent your own business? And I think a lot of people will try to say, oh, well, I'm a genius, or I'm really good at what I do. And I think that, we know communication isn't just what we say, it's how we say it, it's our body language. And a lot of people miss this. And this is why I really think people who think, oh, AI is coming to take our jobs, it's not there. AI is not going out, taking your job, and then spending money on this cup of coffee here. It's just doing the job that you have programmed an AI agent to do. And in turn, the flow of money is not going to the AI agent. Yeah, sure, the platform, the LLM is getting its tokens and whatnot. But at the end of the day, that value add, that increase in profit share is going to your pocket. So I've gone on this little tangent to say that I think when you have your personal life in order, that's where you see your business grow. And again, hands up, we're talking about vulnerability, transparency here. I had a really shit 2023. And now it's only when I can move away from the experience and think, what went wrong? What was the real challenge? I can see my personal life wasn't where I wanted it to be. Health problems, other issues. And you think, and I remember reflecting on this very quickly, but my number one goal for 2024 was to get my health in order. Business came second. Everything was priority. I was going to the gym 5 times a week. I was running. I was training jiu-jitsu 3-4 times a week. And for me, I realized that, and I've really carried that on till today, that I have my non-negotiables, and it's exercise. It's the things that essentially fill my cup up first, because I know if I can be my best self, then that's going to reflect in business. And if I start sabotaging myself there, then I don't have a business to fall back on. And it's not like a job where I can turn around and I can say to boss, hey, my mental health isn't feeling too great, or I'm not feeling too great. Can I get a note to take the next 2 months off? And by the way, can you pay me? Because we all know that you can't go to your clients and say, listen, mate, I've had this catastrophe happen in my personal life. Can you give me a bit of leeway? Fortunately, people can sympathize with you and say, you know what, take a week off. But I wouldn't pay someone for 3 months to do nothing at home.
I don't want to move too far, so I was looking up just because I forget the name, but I really like paradoxes like those. I think like examining paradoxes and self-assessment and all those things. And you mentioned the Solomon's one, which is one I've been thinking on, but also very different but similar. Have you ever heard of the Polanyi's paradox?
I haven't. Please tell me about it.
So Solomon is around like hard to be wise about yourself, but easier to see in others. Paraphrasing differently, but Polanyi's is when you are good at something. So like I think I'm a very good mentor. I'm a very good advisor, whether it's one-on-one coaching, mentoring, leading employees, helping them grow. But it's like, but you can't articulate or do for yourself what you are good at. So this would be like, so I'm a chef by trade. I can build a sauce and I can tell you when a steak is of the exact doneness, and I can't explain it to another person. I can't train it to another person. And so it's just another interesting, like, so this made me think when you, Colby, were saying is like, I do the values and the mission, I can connect the dots, and I can see them the outside, but then like to turn it inward and do it, or even to just break it down to give a good prompt or get somebody else to do it. It's just that disconnect. Yeah, it's the things like I do innately outside of myself, but I can't do for myself. It's just an interesting.
Yeah, and I think
you find these paradoxes, and then everybody's already thought about it. It's like, oh, now I just got to read and think.
And I guess like, you know, like some of the hard questions of like, what do I actually want for myself? I don't think a lot of people can really answer it. Like, and especially now where we've got so much choice. Where I think that's why a lot of people are unhappy in North America. It's like you can essentially, well, I don't want to say you can do anything, but in your head, those thoughts are going through your head, whether you want them or not. Like you've got so many options, you've got unlimited options, and that's not necessarily good. So like we're just constantly thinking of like what's on the other side. The grass is greener everywhere else. And then it's hard to nail down exactly what you want and to convince yourself that that's the case. I'm getting better at it. I know that like, there's like certain things I can grab onto, like, hey, I know for a fact I love this. And I know for a fact that I love that, but there's gaps. There's pretty large gaps that I continuously need to work on. And, you know, and like you said earlier, like no one's watching. You have those, you know, especially in the winter months. I mean, God bless you, you're in Brazil. We've got, you know, January, February, March is rough over here. It's rough. So that like, you know, even just being in that environment, like you want to sometimes just not like wake up. You're just like, I want to sleep for a little while or rest for a little while, or it's cold to go to the gym and, you know, those things. So it's interesting. But I think once you kind of narrow down that purpose, even if it's like 60% of the way there or 50% of the way there, I think like getting up and doing those things when you're walking towards or running towards or, that future self, I think it becomes most likely a little easier.
I also think just from the thoughts that you mentioned, and it was funny, I was in Portugal a few weeks ago with one of my best friends who is now moved to Dubai, and we're actually talking about psychedelics and talking about shrooms and whatnot. And I said, I find like I've become more philosophical and introspective. He's like, bro, you're already philosophical and introspective. And I spend at least an hour a day just going out for walks in nature, and you can't beat the nature here in Rio. But the point I was getting to, and this is probably something again that I realized about a year or so ago, it's okay to change the goalpost. And as I mentioned, my friend, he was trying to keep me accountable. He had the best intentions, and he said, oh, how is this goal going? And initially I was like, what? And then I thought, it's okay if in 2 months' time I found that the goal that I set at the start of the year, I've changed, because it'd be a big negative if I'm going in this direction and the goal I have is going in this direction. It would actually be stupid. And again, if one of your friends turned around and said, mate, I've started, and I'll give you a very easy example. For some reason, I decided it'd be a good idea to aim to do an ultra marathon last May. I did it 50 kilometers. The most I ran before was a half marathon, and I had no intention. And it was talking to this friend at the start of last year where I said, oh, I'm coming back to the UK. He said, why don't you do the half marathon? And I thought, done that before. I was like, let me set out for this challenge. I had no intent on January 1st to run an ultra marathon, to ultra train. And then by, I think the race was on May 25th. By then I was clocking 5 to 7 hours of running every single week. And it was just, there was no intention. And I say that to say that the goals we set for ourselves, they can be fluid. We don't need to be rigid with them. But I think it's the case of, and I link that back to our values and goals and purpose. I think as long as we kind of keep that North Star trajectory thereabouts, realistically, if you go and you jump out of a plane at, which you can't, at 34,000 feet versus 35,000 feet, it pretty much feels the same. You're at that high, you're like, well, I'm here anyways. Like, there we are. And I think at times we're always just trying to strive and get to one more. But quite often we hit the atmosphere and that is enough. And these things change as time goes on. And I'm sure that the people both of you were 5 years ago are very different to who you are today. And if you were to envision yourself 5 years ago, at least for me, and say, oh, this is what I'd be doing in 5 years' time, it'd be very different to what you're doing now. You're probably a kid further along than you thought you were, or you're probably living in a different place. I mean, you were mentioning you were in South Africa for 3 years. So these are things, and I think I think the message I'm trying to say is staying kind to yourself is really important. But for me, keeping that default aggression towards the goals you have is equally important.
Sorry.
Just one more thing on that. That is like, it's so interesting that we're talking about this. It's so timely. Because like I've been really diving into this over the past 2 weeks. And I think where I went wrong before is that I didn't really try to write down or articulate that stuff at all. And you're right, it is okay that it changes and moves. The difference is let's actually try to get some thoughts on paper to see it and be like, is this what I want? Can I check in with this later? It's hard to remember 5 years ago of what I was really thinking about. But if I'm able to be okay with that goal changing, or like you said earlier, like you can change your mission, you can change your purpose. Your purpose can change every 3 months but it's nice to be able to like, okay, I'm going to go test this with some intentionality. Let's go test this theory for myself, and then be able to be okay with changing. And I think that's why I had such a hard time with it before, is that when I wrote it down, it felt like it was in stone. And then I was just letting myself down all the time. But yeah, interesting.
There's a different layer. I've already kind of chatted with Colby on this, but there's a different layer. Like I'm a bit older than both of you, but I started the whole entrepreneurship, like reading self-improvement, self-assessments, and setting goals in like 2007 or 8. So I'm coming up on 20 years of doing this. And I got a mental health check, my spouse was my original business partner, and we survived a full-on grow and bankrupt. So like, it's a very strong relationship. And at one point, a few years ago, she came to me because I was always like goals and self-discovery and how do I become the person I need to be in the future, and speakers and conferences and peer groups. And then she said it very well, and she wasn't emotional. She said, just so you know, your consistent and constant effort to improve who you are communicates to me that you're not happy with what you have. And ever since then, the conversation's been, how do I make sure that I remain, like, I have a North Star, I want to grow, I want to have ambition, whether that's financial or whether that's just whatever I define as my goals, while also practicing contentment for today. I'm in my mid 40s now, and I'm just like, how do I make sure at every time that I'm not, because so I did last year. I invested very heavily in like gyms. I got the Aura Ring and the sleep counters and the calorie apps. And then in January for me, it was like, all right, where are my goals on that? How much time? Like I was putting, 7 or 8 hours a week into the gym, and it's like I don't enjoy the process. And it's like, what exactly are my goals there? And so now it's been like, all right, so I still want to do it, but let's introduce different types of activity. And just like, how do I make sure I'm having present moments? Like, I know people who like they're going to start running a marathon and they get those 10, 20 hours of running, and they don't sacrifice their work time; they sacrifice their family time. And so it's just like there's another layer, I guess, that I'm now both. Like, just how do I make sure that I'm content? Because I am. Like, I have nothing really to complain about. I only have first world problems. I could always have more, but how do I make sure I appreciate and be content? But again, there's no easy answers. There's no answer to this.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot as well. I've been really disappointed in myself with that constant future in mind. And it's like, holy shit, we're gonna die. I have to keep saying it. Like YOLO was like a thing that like just became so just oversaid and overdone. But like if you really say it slowly, you're like, oh shit, like why am I just sprinting towards, or everyone's got their own version of sprint, but like, why do I feel like the only satisfaction I get is, and then you actually get the thing, like when we hit a certain revenue goal, I thought it was going to be the greatest, and I did not care at all. And like, it's just like, when am I going to learn that lesson? It's like, why didn't I enjoy that more? Like, it's like it's like addiction. It's like I used to be on those nicotine pouches. I used to quit like a month ago. And it's so funny. It's the leading up to having the nicotine or smoking the cigarette. When you actually do it, when you're actually having it or afterwards, that feeling's gone. It's the lead up to, it's that like that dopamine chase. Yeah, interesting stuff.
There's a lot of what you've both said there. And I remember reading something before that was saying, everything we have in this life, we're renting. We are right now renting space on this earth. Our great-great-grandparents rented space on this earth. Their grandparents rented space on this earth. The dinosaurs, same thing. And pretty much guaranteed, unless we go into a chamber that freezes our bodies, but the three of us are going to be dead in 100 years' time. Most people are not going to remember the three of us. So at times you just think, fuck it. Why don't you actually enjoy your life and do the things that you really want to do, or you say you're going to do? And of course, life is about balance. And there was one point I really wanted to make about where I've loved how this conversation's gone. Before jumping onto this podcast, everyone has a preconceived notion as to where a conversation is going to go. And as I mentioned, I've done over 100, and you always think, okay, you scan the person, you do your due diligence before, maybe we'll talk about this. But this conversation has gone from business to the way how I see it, 3 men, probably 12 or so years different in age, who have had different life experiences. We all have had different life experiences, who have sat down, and for me, Levi, I've never met you before, but have somewhat opened up and shared their own vulnerabilities and experiences there. And we're all making this up as we go along. Our parents are as well, our grandparents are as well. We have, for what we know, in a physical realm, one life. Everyone's religious. Some people aren't, actually, sorry. But we don't know what happens when we die, and there's so much that goes into it. And that's where I think the notion, because I think I'm really, really critical myself. Like, I get really pissed at myself when like, for instance, last night, I said I was going to go out with my missus, come back and do work. And quite honestly, finish food at 9:30, I was nearly sleeping on the dinner table. I was so tired. Am I actually going to do good work when I get back home? No. Would I prefer to turn around and put Netflix on and just go to sleep? Absolutely, yes. I'm a human. That's a natural instinct. And I think there's this facade that a lot of these entrepreneurs put up, like Andrew Tate, or I can't even remember the guy. He's like a really big black guy. He runs, puts his face in ice bowls.
Oh yeah.
It's just all
Yeah.
bollocks. Like, it's bollocks. Like this guy, I guarantee has cried before in his life, as I'm sure we all have. So it's all this perception that the online world wants to give that is so far from reality. We wake up, what's the first thoughts we have? We don't think about, I don't think, how did my mum sleep? I think, did I get a good night's sleep? That's literally how we're wired as humans. We're selfish first. Hopefully, most of us try to be selfless as it comes. And it's just about doing the best you can in the journey of life. That's just my views.
There's a friend that I have, and Tony Robbins was kind of my first exposure to this like improvement stuff. When I was, I don't know, 19 or something like that. And do you remember Eric Thompson?
Yeah.
You gotta want it as bad as you want to breathe. That guy. That was actually my first exposure, was that guy. I read his book. It was amazing. It was exactly what I needed at the time. But Tony Robbins and a good mentor of mine, Joel Hunter, he works with our business as well. And he kind of just kept reiterating, like, when you really get in your own head about a lot of stuff and like hard on yourself, he's like, can you just try to go serve somebody else to interrupt that kind of whatever rumination in your head? And oh my gosh, is that ever correct? So part of that purpose work that I want to do is, I've got friends that do a lot of work in Africa, and my fiance's a vet, so we're very passionate about animals. It's like, how can that be a weekly thing that happens where I feel like I'm serving? We just adopted a dog last week that was going to be euthanized. And so that felt amazing. And she's fitting into the family. And she's this 11-year-old Yorkie, super fun. But that's the kind of stuff that, like, if what you're doing at work is difficult and it's grindy and you're moving forward, I think that those other things like the gym and giving back, it's like, that's the kind of momentum build that I feel like I'm craving. And there's proof there. I feel great when I do that stuff. Selfishly.
What's success for you? Let's switch the viewpoint to a little bit further in the future. It sounds like we're all the kind of people who read and think and have goals, and I love the life development you've done, but like, what's the BHAG?
It's a great question. I think I have a very clear answer on, because I've asked myself that question dozens of times. I have this kind of North Star of who I want to be when I'm 40, which is what I define as
which is still super young, just so you know.
Yep. Agreed. All relative, because I tell you what, my sister who's 20, she tells me I'm old already. So I wouldn't want to think what she thinks about you, Levi. No offense. But it's to be a noble, honorable man who leads with integrity. And for me, that is just, that is above. I have goals. I want to be a father. I want to help serve people, and I have financial goals, of course. I think I'm pretty ambitious. But above all that, if I compromise my financial aspirations, the goals for my business, and I do it being a dick, then for me, that's not worth it. I want to lead where I don't owe people money. I don't have people saying, that guy Joe, he did so-and-so to me. I want to have a digital footprint where, some people don't like me and they won't like me. It's fine. Like, I'm not here to be liked by everyone, but I don't want to have this footprint, and I know I don't have it so far, where someone can look at me and say, he fucked me over. He did me wrong. He did this. Because I say, okay, show me the proof. There's no proof whatsoever. And I think just doing that, and equally, if I'm wrong about something, I want to hold my hands up and say, no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. So that, for me, that's what success looks like. It's being the version of myself that can look back and say, you know what, you've done pretty well. You've done that off your own volition. You've done that off your own hard work, not just your own hard work, because it takes a community to raise a child, and equally it takes the people around you, family, friends, partners, clients, teams, to achieve whatever you want to achieve. But it's looking at that. So for me, that is my answer as to what success looks like for me. And I think the revenue goals that I have in my head, they're an outcome of achieving that goal. And as long as I achieve that goal, and I'd rather achieve that goal and be a poor man, metaphorically, and there's no definition of what a poor man is, than be a rich man. I'd rather be wealthy than rich and not hit those goals. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, some of the best goals are aspirational too. Like some of the things you said, I totally get, but also wouldn't know how to check the box. My definition of those, I'm sure, would continue to grow.
Yeah. It's kind of
mine
like
are no
that,
different. Yeah.
that gravestone type stuff, you know, like the eulogy.
I had a mentor run us through an exercise. We call it life booking, but it's like a written interview talking to your 90-year-old self. Similar to stuff you mentioned, is like just like put yourself in the mindset of the 90-year-old. You're, you know, let's just not say you're your deathbed, but you're a healthy 90, and asking those questions. You know, thinking back, what did you care about? Like, all those things. And then the exercise, and I'll say, because I think she built it, was Nancy Mathis. She, on the last page, so you go through this, it's fairly emotional. It's meant to be a solitary or a couple's exercise, but you get to the end, and then they have a 2-page thing with a little table, and you plot your timeline. So when do you think you're going to die? Give an answer. And not ask you necessarily, but you have to like think, like, when do I think I'm going to die? And everybody's like, depending on how optimistic or healthy they are, it's anywhere from the 80 to the 120 range. And you have your birth date. That's kind of standard. And then you start plotting, like, when you think you're going to be a father, when you think you're going to get the cottage, when I think I'm going to do and execute all my long-term BHAG goals. Like, what are the things I can put as milestones? Graduate university, buy a house, buy a fancy car, have kids, the kids graduate. And you do that on a table. And then after that, you turn the page and you plot it on a line. And you do this all on paper, no computers. And almost every time I've done this to other people as well as having had it done to me. And almost every time I do this exercise, what we end up is your lifespan, so birth to your identified death date, and all of the things you want to accomplish and all of your long-term goals is in less than 50% of the line. And it's a really interesting conversation with yourself or with others to just think about like longer term things. It's just like you realize like your long term goals are actually real short. Some of them are like they want everything they wanted to do that they could articulate as a long term goal to their 90-year-old self was done by 55. So I love the mind games you can play on these.
That's it. I've never done it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting exercise.
I heard about it,
especially if you don't know, like at the end, what it's going to be. Like, oh, I've already stolen the big learning there, but you'll be aware now.
Yeah.
I ruined it. Sorry.
No, it makes sense though. I've never done that. Huh.
That's fascinating. I put a post out the other day which was saying how, and one question that I asked on my podcast, so I'll both give you guys a spoiler, is what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? And I think it's so poignant because there's so many different answers that I've had from that question. I've probably asked it to over, 70 people now. But the point being is the 19-year-old who isn't too sure what they want to do after college or university, they're making a decision. The recently divorced mum who is 54, her 2 children have flown the nest. She's making a decision in life. She's not too sure what's around the corner. The 72-year-old retired man who, I don't know, let's just say he's a widow. He's deciding what he wants to do on a Tuesday morning, if he wants to go to play bowls or he wants to go down to have breakfast and coffee with a group. We're all making decisions. And I think this is something at least I thought about when I was younger. I thought, and I think a lot of us do when we're children, we all think that, oh, by 25, I'm going to be married, I'm going to have a house, I'm going to have kids, I'm going to turn around, be a millionaire. And I'll tell you what, for a fact, I didn't do any of that. Not even one of those boxes were ticked. So here we are. And I think it's just a case of, I came up with my own concept called straight lines and corners. And I came up with the theory from traveling. And I think in life, we get anxious because we think we can see everything that's down the road. And when we look down the road and we see that the road's empty, we get anxious. We think, oh my God. But what traveling has taught me, and since September 2022, I was doing some maths, I've probably spent half the time since then outside of the UK traveling. And what I absolutely love about traveling, what energizes me about it, is that you're consistently not knowing what's around the corner. You go to your next place, you meet someone, you build a bond, a connection, and it doesn't even need to be sexual. It's just you find friends and you just think, wow, that person, they change your worldview, your perception, and you just think that is incredible. And equally, I think in business, if you're consistently looking to push yourself, and this is something that I try to really encourage myself to do, I never know what's around the corner. Turn around, as I mentioned, right now we're talking to a multi-billion-dollar organization in the States. And the person who introduced me to it said, is this something you want? And I said, I'll just be very honest with you. And I'm quite an honest person, maybe overshare a little bit too much, too transparent. Said, honestly, this is the type of opportunity I dreamt about years ago. So put the bar this high and I'll do my best at trying to jump over it. And if I don't, so be it, but at least I gave it that go.
It's amazing. I love it. I love it. I might try to, there's a question I gotta ask because I watched one of your videos. And you mentioned it earlier in the podcast. How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
I started in the end of 2018, start of 2019.
Still doing it now?
Yeah, I mean, partly why I've come to Brazil, so.
Okay. Are you like purple, brown, black?
I'm a very humble blue belt.
Okay. Sweet. That's okay. So I did it I started when I was 15, and then I did it for a few years off and on, and was going to go for my blue belt and then quit for 14 years, and just came back a couple of years ago, and started again. But then I switched gyms 3 times because I moved, and so you're probably like a purple belt. Because you probably switched gyms a lot, eh?
Well, no. So I mentioned 2023 was a pretty difficult year for me. I had a chronic back injury, which I had to. I couldn't run. I could barely lift weight. Like it was depressive. I don't want to say I was depressed, but it was the point where I was in a really down place, and then when I came back, it was January 2024. So I had to take 16 months off. I couldn't even bend down. I couldn't do anything. So being able to get back into jiu-jitsu, every time I do it, I touch wood, I thank God, and I feel very, very grateful. So there was that, COVID, and if I'm honest, I think I'm a very, very standard blue belt. There are guys who really big themselves up and, oh yeah, I should be a purple belt. I know I'm not a purple belt. And what's great about jiu-jitsu, you think you're a black belt, go roll with a black belt and watch. I don't even need to say watch she fuck you up, because I know there are girls at my gym and they're world champions and they will beat the crap out of you like nothing.
Yeah.
And looking at the step below, purple belts, I roll the purple belts. Yeah, like I can do okay against them, but they're better than me. So they deserve their belt. I deserve my blue belt.
Yeah,
I'm content with that. And that's
so
the journey.
That's actually one of my goals for this year is just to go get the blue belt. Just to go put the time in, go get the blue belt, see how I feel afterwards. I'm so injury prone. Like if you're rolling with 22-year-olds that just want to rip your head off. I'm a big guy, so I'm a big target. People just want to go 150% with me.
Colby would come into team meetings with like blown up ears and sprained things and not able to walk. And it's like, you are not selling jiu-jitsu to me.
I know. Well, it's just, I feel like I'm just such a target. Like everyone's so intense with me.
Colby's 6'5", and like, he's a big guy.
How old are you, Colby?
Just turned 35.
For me, that the best thing that I started doing for that, because you say you're injury prone. I was talking to my girlfriend today, but like my list of what's happened to me, it's mainly back issues. But one of the best things I've done, and I'm not religious with this, is it's warming up. That essentially just activating the muscles, and I've only learned this through. I've had to really trial and think. Okay, well, I want longevity. I want to train 3 to 5 times a week. I don't just want to turn around and do a sprint where I train twice a week, then I get injured, because there are a lot of people who do that. But the warm up is so crucial, whether it's a case of just, I don't know, warming up on, if you have equipment on a bike or whatever. If not, even just like the basic star jumps, burpees, stretching, just a little 5 to 10 minute routine. Nothing that's going to get the heart rate too high, but that has massively reduced my injury rates from what
that makes a lot of sense. So not going in cold.
Seriously.
Fighting another 250-pound man. That makes a lot of sense. But I'm gonna have to get your like WhatsApp number or something. We gotta chat more. I feel like there's so much in common.
Just a quick
I trained
one.
in Brazil too.
What gym do you train at? What's who are you under?
The one that got me back into it was a Renzo Gracie gym.
Renzo, yeah, nice. Really strong gym.
And then I did the Gracie Baja in Brazil, which was super fun. But the perfect example, rolled with some American kid that was in there who's like a collegiate wrestler, and he kicked me in the teeth within the first 2 seconds of the match. And it was like my tooth almost went through my lip, and I was like, what are we doing?
And you were there like for a business conference.
Yeah, I was like, what are we doing? I was like, I'm on vacation, bro. Chill.
I tell you what, those American kids who are D1, D2 wrestlers, they're never an easy role. You're like, Jesus, okay, fine.
No, he's a white belt, just like smashed me in the face within the first few seconds. But anyway, I digress. Jiu-jitsu,
and that's why you got pull guard.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, so a couple of rapid fire things. I want to give some transferable knowledge from your world to our listeners. And I'm thinking, what are some concepts or ways of thinking about things from your work that might shift somebody's mindset? Yes, Levi?
No, I was queuing up because what I want to know is where to start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the number one question we get is clients come in and they have seen the reels and they've seen the ads pushed at them and they're overwhelmed. They've used zero AI. We talked to lots of $5-10 million businesses who have never turned on ChatGPT.
Yeah, and
language.
And there's a lot of like, if you even say the word AI, like the amount of ads that are coming in on people's feeds is astronomical. And it's like, once again, where do you even start to think about this? And maybe some like tips and tricks or just the easy wins that people can go towards.
Yeah, great question. I think people have AI wrong. What I mean by this is they look at AI as this really scary concept that they don't know where to start. And it is if you don't understand. And for me, AI is it's a problem-solving tool. That's all it is. If we eliminate AI, what was there before AI? Automation. Automation, let's take a really easy universal example that people can look at. McDonald's is pretty much in every country in the world. What did you have to do 5-10 years ago? You'd go into your local McDonald's, go up to the counter, order your meal, blah, 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 talk to someone behind there. Would you like to go large? Yes, no, whatever, done. Automation then replaced it by having machines that you walk into, you do everything. That's essentially automation. They've automated the process. AI is that with a brain. So I don't know, maybe in 5 years' time, it's a case of you go on the McDonald's app, it dynamically remembers what do you fancy today? The McDonald's AI assistant, I fancy this. Oh, would you like to go large? Yeah, cool. And that channels everything that goes straight over. You walk into McDonald's, your estimated arrival time is your food will be ready in 7 minutes. Perfect. Go straight up, pick up the food, count it, done. If you explain that to someone, they get it. They're like, oh, that's actually quite clever. What's the benefit? It saves me time. There you go. It delights me. It speeds up the process. People look at AI as just this really scary concept. What I advise on a consistent basis, and this is what I do within my own business, within clients' businesses, we always look at the theory of constraints and the single point of failure. And what I find a lot of people do within businesses, like all of us as entrepreneurs, we've got a list. I literally have it in this book right here of all the things I need to do. I've got like I've got a list of the date it was set and when it was done by and whatnot. But there's no point me problem solving for the fifth thing down the line when if I don't fix the first constraint within the business, nothing else matters. People look at, oh, I need to optimize my conversion rate, but then they're generating 5 leads a month. Your problem isn't a conversion rate issue, it's a lead issue. So that's the first thing we look at. And then what comes before the leads? It's the ideal customer profile. If you turn around and if you've got 30 leads coming in a month and you're closing one of them, well, I wouldn't even be saying, oh, it's a conversion rate issue. The first thing I'd be looking at is who's the ICP we're targeting, because that's probably the issue. We're selling meat to vegetarians. It's not a surprise we're not actually getting sales in. So that is how I would decompartmentalize the process with people. That's actively what I do, what we do when we're thinking about how do we fix a business? What are the challenges? And quite often it's a case of you're within your business. It's really difficult to see your own issues. And it's just from getting a bit of information and feedback where I can come in and then come back out and say, okay, I understand what your challenge is. And here it is. And sometimes people look at you and they think, oh my God, that's the eureka moment. But it's just making, as you mentioned, problem aware. Most people aren't even aware of their own issues. And you can see this in all walks of life. In jiu-jitsu, you turn around and you think your issue is, oh, I can't submit people, but maybe your whole setup is so incorrect. You're not able to sweep. You're not able to put certain pieces together. And I think where I really try to piece the puzzle together for people is, again, instead of looking at the potential issue that comes further down the line, let's just consistently, systematically solve the first and next issue to hand. So maybe you're looking at system one thinking and going through, breaking down what we need to do chronologically and then getting there.
That's exactly how it's so validating.
Yeah, that's super validating. Yeah.
Yeah. So side question then, because then this is like anybody who's in this type of industry, because, more competitors, the better. You go in and you have providing X service and you find out the problem they actually have is further up the chain or the swim than the problem you're there to solve. So for example, they want you to do marketing and they don't actually understand their customer profile. Do you how generous are you, or how do you strict or formal are you? And we come on this all the time. We found different ways to deal with it, but we want to see them succeed and realize that what they bought is not exactly what they need. Do you sell them something different? Do you fix the problem while doing that project, or how do you manage that situation?
It comes down to game theory, realistically. I look at everything in a multi-period game. And I think it was Naval Ravikant who said, if you wouldn't do business with someone for the rest of your life, don't do business with them for a day. And for us, in as much as businesses say, oh, we're application only, we've got a wait list. Let's be real. If the right client comes along, or if someone's willing to give you the extra $1,000 in revenue, most people will say yes. How I look at this is the time it takes compared to the value that we need to give. If we need to get a whole team in and this is an ongoing piece of work, then we're not going to do that. We're going to suggest, hey, look, this is a challenge, this is a problem. We recommend you do this. And we've had it before. For instance, story from a few years ago, before we pivoted all into AI, one of our clients had a new website built, which was awful. I said to them consistently, and it was between us and someone else that they were going to give it to. They went with the other person. It was a shit show. In the end, I went to the founder and said, look, I tell you what, you can use my web developer to build you a new website. I don't want a penny. Go directly to him. He'll sort it out. I think in business, if you can start to build goodwill and if you consistently have the long term in mind, then if I need to turn around and I need to do a bit of extra work, or I need to say to the team, hey, we need to do this, then that's it. Because what I never want to do, and I've swayed into this belief system before, and I feel it's cost me and it's held me back. I don't want to cry about pennies when I'm trying to make pounds. And I think a lot of people do this where they look at, oh, well, this is going to cost me a bit extra. Profit margins, they come and go. I'd rather erode my margin by 10%, delight a client, but I will really make sure, and it's not an in-your-face thing of like, oh, by the way, we did this, like, thank us. It's like, by the way, you had this challenge, this is what we did. Because for me, if I look at our viral coefficient and for every client we bring in, or every 10 clients we bring in, we get recommended on to another 2 or 3 clients, well, that pays itself off tenfold. And as well, the metrics that I concern myself with within my business are not profit margins on short-term projects. I try, and I'm very, very direct with people. When I'm bringing in a new client, a new partner, I don't want them, or I don't want to work with them for 2 to 3 months. We work on a retainer-based model and a performance-based model. So it's in my incentive to look at these issues and fix them, because I want to be working with these people for 2 to 3 years, not 2 to 3 months. I want to be part of their team. I want them to know that Joe and his team, they're closers, they take care of these problems. We give it to them. It's not, oh, well, what do you want here? It's just, yep, it's done. And I think that is a principle, being someone who can overcare. And I think my role in the business is very similar to yours, Colby. I'm very much the relationship person, understanding what the challenges are. I can then go back to my team and say, guys, this is what we're looking to do. Can we go through all of this? And then I'm kind of the bridge there to do the QA, make sure everything's there. And I think if I focus my business, one of our key metrics is lifetime value of the client. If I turn around and I can do these things, then if a client was to say, hypothetically, stay for 6 months versus 18 months, well, me being a bit more generous in the front end, that's going to pay itself off tenfold.
I know this was a really fun conversation for me, but the business for life, business for day, Ravicon, and the don't cry about pennies, like favorite sound bites for me today. Love that.
I love it.
We're trying to shift from project only to longer term recurring revenue situations. So that's the type of language that is also spinning around in my head. Yeah.
And that generosity piece, I totally agree. And I think as long as like, once again, we mentioned intentionality a few times, but I think that you can be intentional about like generosity within the company, and you can kind of name what that is. And like, I know that there was a guy that was working with a company that I know, and there was a lot of people that couldn't afford the service. I think it was a vet clinic or I think it was a vet clinic. So what they did, because a lot of vets were like wanting to give stuff for free and there was a lot of guilt and the management was really upset when they would do it, is they set budgets per year per vet. They could spend $3,500 or $3,000 a year on gifting services away, and it just eliminated all that friction, which is a really interesting approach. But yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Great. Anything else you want us to know before we come to an end? Like we get to this point where like anything else I'm going to go is too shallow versus the quality of where we got to. So I don't want to go back to like the the transactional.
Yeah,
Any fun?
And where can people find you as well?
I would say I think that's everything from mine. We've shot for an hour and 40 minutes, and I hope that we've given someone somewhere some essence that they can delve into. Maybe, probably more so, what I would like to think of is, yeah, there's business strategy and there's tactics that we've all shared. It isn't just myself, but I think looking at, hopefully for me, the vulnerability, the transparency that we've all shown, that we've all spoken about in our lives is important, because we are all humans and we're not, I'd like to think, up in the clouds, which is important for people. So that's it. You asked, where can people find me? I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Joe Testouri. I think I'm the only one with that name. If I'm not, then, well, I'm going to be shocked, because I've got a twin brother that I haven't been told about. But there we go. Posting consistently on LinkedIn at least 5 times a week. On YouTube, Joe Testouri. Again, we have our own podcast, which the two of you will be coming on to very soon, the Grapple and Growth podcast. I'm very proud of it. We've shot over 114 episodes, if I've done the exact notes and looked at everything. And we've had unbelievable guests. We've had entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, Olympians. That's one of the coolest flexes that I can say. High performers, jiu-jitsu athletes, competitors. I've been so privileged, so blessed to be able to sit down with people who I could have only have dreamt of 3 or so years ago. So if anyone wants to see our content and what we're doing there, then it's probably one of the best places. And that there's an array of people that they can hear from. And if they don't like one guest, well, I'm sure they'll like another one. So guys, I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Till next time. Looking forward to it.
This episode of Built to Last is brought to you by Iron House Pro, your behind-the-scenes partner in building organizations designed to thrive. We specialize in solving the big challenges, the small annoyances, and everything in between. So while you're out there dreaming big, we're here making sure your systems, processes, and people are ready for tomorrow. Iron House Pro, driven to create lasting organizations. Learn more at ironhousepro.com.